I was 3 months into a night security job at a 9-story office building in downtown Milwaukee when I noticed something on camera 6 that made me question whether the building I was sitting in was the same building I thought it was. Camera 6 covers the stairwell between the 4th and 5th floors, a concrete staircase with metal handrails and a fire door at each landing. I had watched that camera hundreds of times. It was the most boring feed on the system. Nobody takes the stairs at 2 a.m. in an empty office building. But on a Wednesday night in February of 2024, I glanced at camera 6 and saw a door that shouldn't have been there. Between the 4th floor landing and the 5th floor landing, there was a door set into the wall on the half landing where the stairs turn, a gray metal door with no window and no number. I had walked that stairwell dozens of times. There is no door on that half landing. There has never been a door on that half landing, but camera 6 was showing me one, and it was open about 3 inches, and the light coming through the gap was not the fluorescent white of the stairwell. It was yellow, warm, flickering, like candlelight. Let me explain the building because you need to understand the layout. The Bridger Building is a 1960s-era office tower, 9 floors plus a basement, concrete and glass, standard corporate architecture, law firms, accounting offices, a few tech startups on the upper floors. During the day, the building has maybe 400 people in it. At night, it has one, me. I work from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. My office is a small room behind the lobby with a desk and 16 security monitors. Each monitor shows a different camera feed: parking garage, lobby, elevators, hallways on each floor, and the stairwells. My job is to watch the feeds, do hourly rounds, check the doors, call the police if anything happens. Nothing ever happens. That was the pitch when they hired me. Easy money. Sit in a chair, watch screens, stay awake. For 3 months, that's exactly what it was. Then camera 6 showed me a door that doesn't exist. Subscribe right now if you haven't. What I found when I went to look at that door is something I have never told my employer. Also drop a like. 1 second. Now let me tell you what happened. I stared at the monitor for maybe 2 minutes. The door was there, open 3 inches. Yellow light spilling through the gap onto the concrete landing. I could see dust particles floating in the light. That detail is what convinced me it was real. Dust particles don't show up in glitches. I grabbed my flashlight and my radio and took the elevator to the 4th floor. I entered the stairwell through the fire door. I walked up the first flight to the half landing where the stairs turn. I stood on the landing and looked at the wall. There was no door, just a concrete wall with a fire extinguisher and a sign that said floor 5 with an arrow pointing up. I touched the wall, solid, cold, concrete. I looked at the spot where the door had been on the monitor. Nothing. I went back downstairs to the security office and looked at camera 6. The door was gone. The feed showed the same empty half landing I had just been standing on. I sat there staring at the monitor, trying to understand what I had seen. I rewound the footage. The recording system stores 72 hours of continuous footage on a local drive. I scrubbed back to the moment I first noticed the door. The footage showed an empty half landing, no door, no light. The door that I had watched on the live feed for 2 minutes was not on the recording. The live feed had shown me something the recording didn't capture. I told myself it was a glitch, a reflection, a compression artifact, something technical that I didn't understand. I went back to my rounds. I checked the doors. I walked the floors. Everything was normal. I finished my shift and went home. The next night, I watched camera 6 more carefully. Nothing. Just an empty stairwell. The night after that, nothing. 5 nights of nothing. Then on the 6th night, at exactly 2:17 a.m., the door appeared again. Same spot, same gray metal, same 3-inch gap, same yellow light. This time I didn't go upstairs. I sat in my chair and watched. For 11 minutes, the door was visible on the live feed. I could see the light flickering. I could see the dust. Then the door slowly closed. The gap narrowed from 3 inches to 2 to 1 to nothing. It closed the way a person closes a door when they're trying not to make noise. Gently, deliberately, then the door was gone. Not closed and visible. Gone. The wall was back, flat concrete, like the door had never been there. I checked the recording immediately. Nothing. The saved footage showed an empty landing for the entire 11 minutes. Whatever camera 6 was showing me in real time, it was refusing to record. Over the next 2 months, the door appeared 7 more times, always on camera 6, always between 2 and 3 a.m., always for a duration between 8 and 14 minutes, always with the same yellow light, and never on the recording. I started keeping a log. Date, time, duration. I noticed a pattern. The appearances were getting more frequent. The first gap was 6 days, then 5, then 4, then 3. The door was showing up more often, and the gap was getting wider. The first time it was 3 inches. By the 5th appearance, it was 6 inches. By the 7th, it was almost a foot. The yellow light was brighter. I could see more of what was behind it. A hallway, not a closet or a utility room. A hallway with walls that looked old. Plaster, maybe. Not concrete, not drywall. Plaster, yellowed, cracked, lit by something warm and unsteady. A hallway that does not exist in the floor plan of the Bridger building. A hallway between the 4th and 5th floors of a 9-story building that has never had a half floor. I know because I checked the blueprints. I went to the city planning office and pulled the original plans. 9 floors, no half floors, no hidden rooms, no sealed spaces. The building is exactly what it appears to be, except at 2 a.m. on certain nights, when camera 6 shows me a door that opens to a place that shouldn't be there. The last time I saw the door was 3 weeks ago. It was open wider than ever, almost 2 feet. I could see deep into the hallway behind it. The plaster walls extended back maybe 15 or 20 feet before turning a corner. The ceiling was lower than the stairwell ceiling, maybe 7 feet, and the floor was different. Not concrete, wood, dark stained hardwood that looked like it belonged in a house from 100 years ago. Not an office building from the 1960s. There was something on the floor of the hallway. A shoe, a single brown dress shoe lying on its side. Old-fashioned, the kind a man would have worn in the 1950s or 60s. It was just sitting there in the middle of the hallway, lit by that yellow flickering light. Next to the shoe, there was a dark stain on the wood. I couldn't tell what it was. The light was too unsteady, but it was large. It extended from the shoe toward the corner where the hallway turned, like something had been dragged. I stared at it for 9 minutes. Then something happened that made me push back from the desk hard enough to hit the wall behind me. A shadow moved across the hallway floor. Not a person, a shadow. Moving from left to right across the plaster. Cast by something around the corner that I couldn't see. The shadow was tall, thin. The proportions were wrong. The head was too small for the body. The arms were too long. They hung past where the knees should have been. It moved slowly, and then it stopped. The shadow was still, projected onto the floor of a hallway that doesn't exist. Whatever was casting it was standing just around the corner, out of sight, but present, aware. I watched the shadow for maybe 30 seconds. Then it did something that made my chest physically hurt. The shadow's head turned. Not the body, just the head. The silhouette of a head rotating on a neck until it was facing a direction the body wasn't. Toward the door, toward camera 6, toward the monitor I was watching it on. Then the door began to close, slowly, inch by inch. The last thing I saw before the gap disappeared was the shadow moving again, not away, forward, toward the door, toward the camera, toward me. The door closed, the wall returned. I sat in my chair until 6 a.m. without moving. I haven't seen the door since. but the pattern was accelerating. The gaps between appearances were shrinking. The door was opening wider. The shadow was getting closer to the opening. Whatever is behind it has been getting braver for months. And I sit in that chair every night watching camera 6 and waiting, because I know it will appear again. And I know that eventually it won't close. And I know that whatever is standing around that corner in a hallway that doesn't exist in a building that has never had a half floor is going to walk through that door. And when it does, the only person in the building will be me.
I spent 2 years working overnight security at a shopping mall that closed in 2019, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that I was never alone in that building. Not once. Something was in that mall with me every single night. I couldn't see it. I couldn't identify where it was, but I could hear it. Moving through the empty stores, walking on floors that should have been silent, opening doors that I had locked 20 minutes earlier, and once in a while, if I was standing in the right place at the right time, I could smell it. Not a human smell, not body odor or cologne or sweat, something chemical. Medicinal, like formaldehyde mixed with something sweet, the smell of preservation, the smell of something that should have decomposed a long time ago but hadn't. The mall closed because the anchor stores left and nobody replaced them. Within a year, it went from half occupied to dead. The owners kept the building sealed and maintained while they looked for developers. That's where I came in. My job was to patrol the interior, check for water damage, check for break-ins, check the emergency systems, make sure the pipes didn't freeze in winter. I worked alone, no partner, no backup. Just me and a flashlight and a radio that connected to an answering service 40 miles away. The mall had 2 floors and about 80 retail spaces. Most of them were empty. Glass storefronts with nothing behind them. Some still had fixtures, mannequins, display cases, shelving units. The food court still had the tables bolted to the floor. Walking through it at 1 a.m. felt like walking through a photograph of a place that used to exist. If this is already getting under your skin, drop a comment. I want to know who else has been in an empty building at night and felt something they couldn't explain. The sounds started my second week. Footsteps, not mine, coming from a different part of the mall. Always 1 floor away from wherever I was. If I was on the first floor, I'd hear them on the second. If I went up to the second, they'd be coming from the first. Always at a distance, always just out of sight. The pace was steady, not running, not rushing, walking. The same rhythm a person uses when they're browsing. Casual, relaxed. Like someone window shopping at 2 in the morning in a mall that's been closed for months. I searched for the source every time. I never found anyone. The footsteps would stop the moment I got close to where they had been coming from. Dead silence. Then 5 minutes later, they'd start again. On the other floor, always 1 floor away, always maintaining distance. The doors were worse. I would lock every entrance to the main corridors at the start of my shift. Fire doors, service doors, loading dock doors, all locked, all checked. On my next round, at least 1 would be unlocked. Not broken, not forced. Unlocked, from the inside. The handle turned, and the door pushed open like someone had walked through it from the mall side and didn't bother closing it behind them. Every night, a different door each time. I started marking them with tape. Small pieces of clear tape on the latch so I could tell if they had been opened. The tape was always broken by my second round. Cleanly, not torn, broken, like someone had turned the handle carefully and slowly enough to separate the tape along a straight line. Whoever or whatever was opening those doors understood what tape on a latch means, and they opened the door anyway. The mannequins were the worst part. The old Macy's still had about a dozen mannequins in the display area near the entrance. They were the standard faceless kind, white, smooth, no features. Just blank heads on posed bodies. I passed them on every round. I hated them, but I got used to them. Then one night I noticed something. One of the mannequins had moved, not fallen, moved, It had been in the center of a display platform facing the storefront. Now it was at the edge of the platform, facing the corridor, facing the direction I walk on my rounds. I stared at it. I looked at the others. They were all in their original positions. Just this one had turned. I moved it back. The next night it was turned again. Same position, edge of the platform, facing the corridor, facing me. I stopped moving it back after the third time. I started avoiding that section of the mall on my rounds. I would take the service corridor behind the stores to skip past it, but I had to pass it at least once per shift. And every time I did, that mannequin was in the same position, edge of the platform, blank face aimed at the corridor, waiting. After I quit, I told the next guard about it. He lasted 4 months. He told me the mannequin was gone when he started. Not moved. Gone. The platform was empty. He said he never found it. He said he looked everywhere. He said on his last night he heard something behind him while walking the second floor. He turned around, and at the end of the corridor, maybe 100 feet back, there was a white shape, standing in the middle of the hallway, motionless. He said it was too far away to see details. He said it could have been anything, but he said it was the right height, the right color, the right shape, standing where nothing should have been standing at 3 a.m. in a dead mall. He quit the next day. The building was demolished 6 months later. I drove past the lot once after it was torn down. Empty dirt. Chain link fence. Nothing left. But I swear on my life, as I drove past, I smelled it. That chemical smell. Formaldehyde and sweetness drifting through my car window from an empty lot where nothing stood anymore, where nothing should have been producing any smell at all.
I've been a night security guard at an elementary school for 7 years. I'm not going to name the school. I'm not going to name the district. What I'm going to tell you is something that happens in this building between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. that nobody will officially acknowledge. Not the principal, not the janitors, not the school board. They all know. They just don't talk about it. Because talking about it means admitting that something is happening in a building full of children during the day that nobody can explain or control. And nobody wants to be the person who says that out loud. The school was built in 1954. It's old, single-story, brick, long hallways with linoleum floors and those heavy wooden doors with the wire glass windows. It still has the original PA system with the round speakers bolted to the wall in every classroom. During the day, this building is full of noise. Kids yelling, teachers talking, chairs scraping, bells ringing. At night, it is the quietest place I have ever been. The silence in an empty school is different from the silence in an empty office or an empty store. It's a silence that feels temporary, like the building is holding its breath, waiting for the noise to come back, waiting for the children to return. The PA system turns on by itself. That's the thing I need to tell you. At random times between midnight and 4 a.m., the speakers in the hallway click on. There's a burst of static, then audio, not a voice, not words. Sound. The sound of a classroom, full of children. You can hear them talking, laughing, moving chairs, turning pages. The sounds of a normal school day playing through speakers in an empty building at 2 in the morning. It lasts between 30 seconds and 3 minutes. Then the speakers click off. Silence, like nothing happened. I reported it the first time. My supervisor said the PA system is old and sometimes picks up radio frequencies. I accepted that. Then I listened more carefully the next time it happened. The sounds were not radio. They were specific. I could hear a teacher's voice giving instructions. I could hear individual children responding. I could hear the scrape of a specific chair on a specific floor. The acoustics matched the building. The echo, the reverb, the way sound bounces off linoleum and brick. Whatever was playing through those speakers had been recorded inside this school. In these hallways, in these classrooms, the audio quality was poor, tinny, compressed, like a recording made on old equipment from the 60s or 70s maybe. The voices sounded period appropriate, the cadence of the teacher, the way the children spoke. It sounded like a classroom from 50 years ago playing back through speakers that were installed at the same time the school was built. I started recording the PA activations on my phone. Over 7 years, I have captured 43 separate instances. Most of them are classroom sounds, but 3 of them are different. In those 3 recordings, the classroom sounds stop abruptly, mid-sentence, mid-laugh, like someone pressed pause. Then there is silence for about 10 seconds. Then a single voice comes through, a child's voice, clear, close to a microphone, not part of the classroom ambience, direct, like someone holding the PA handset and speaking into it. The child says the same thing in all 3 recordings. 3 words, "Are you there?" said slowly, deliberately, with a pause between each word. Are you there? And then the speakers click off. I have played those 3 recordings for exactly 2 people. My wife, who told me to quit the job, and the head janitor, who has worked at the school for 22 years. When I played it for the janitor, he listened once. He didn't ask me to play it again. He looked at me and said, "I know." Then he told me something that the school has never made public. In 1971, a 7-year-old girl died in this building. She had an asthma attack during recess. They couldn't get her inhaler in time. She died in the hallway near the main office, near the PA system. The janitor said the activation started about 10 years after her death, sometime in the early 80s. He said every night guard since then has heard them. He said most of them quit. The ones who stay learn to live with it. He said the child's voice is the worst part, not because it's scary, because it sounds lonely, because she's asking if anyone is there. And every night between midnight and 4 a.m. in an empty school with the lights off and the halls dark, she asks again, "Are you there?" And nobody answers, because the only person in the building is me, and I don't know what would happen if I did. Those were 3 true stories from security guards who discovered that the buildings they protect at night are not as empty as they appear. If you made it to the end, tell me which one got to you. Drop it in the comments. If you work security and you've experienced something you can't explain, leave your story below. The most disturbing ones get featured in future videos. Subscribe if you haven't. New stories every week. Share this with anyone who works alone at night in an empty building. And the next time you walk through a dark hallway at 2 a.m. and hear something behind a door that should be locked, ask yourself this: do you really want to open it? Or do you already know what's on the other side?